Of course, increasing coronavirus cases are a cause for concern in some provinces, and with the festive season approaching, experts warn there could be a spike in cases as many people will be travelling. The Coronavirus Command Council met this week to discuss the resurgence of cases, especially in the Western Cape and Eastern Cape. Let's get some analysis now from political analyst Karima Brown. She joins us live in our Johannesburg studio. So Karima, I mean, we all knew it was coming, right? We had warning after warning about not letting our guard down, but here we are.
Absolutely, Shahan. As South Africans, we really are not behaving well, particularly when it comes to things like washing our hands, wearing masks, and not gathering in crowds. And for this reason, of course, it is highly likely that this evening the President will announce tougher measures to curb the spread of the virus, particularly in Nelson Mandela Bay. In preparation for this interview, I was reading that the acting mayor of the Nelson Mandela Bay, area is really urgently awaiting a set of regulations that will help him to manage the pandemic in that community. We know that the Eastern Cape is very badly affected. They've had over 100 deaths in the last 48 hours. And my sense, Shahan, is that Nelson Mandela Bay is certainly going to be the hotspot that the President is going to start with. And then, of course, also the Garden Route and sections of the Western Cape is also likely to come in for some tough measures, Shahan.
Yeah, and that's why we're actually broadcasting in the Western Cape. We'll have a special focus tomorrow about the restrictions and how it'll impact on businesses in particular. Karima, of course, we already know that several organizations are warning if they are impacted by these new lockdown restrictions that they're willing to go to court to see that it doesn't in fact happen. The President, of course, will argue it's in the best interest of South Africans.
Absolutely, Shahan. The President relaxed the regulations, particularly on the sale of alcohol, the last time he addressed the country, and also, of course, in our international travel. But he had a caveat. He said that so much depends on our own behavior. And if you look around the world where second surges have happened, it's largely happened in places like bars, restaurants, taverns. They've become super spreaders. And if we look at restaurants and their compliance, I mean, they've been really hard hit. But the truth of the matter is very few restaurants are actually complying with the safety regulations. And this was all about how we were going to behave. The idea was to open the economy, but for us to take personal responsibility and for businesses to take responsibility. And I think the President would have anticipated a court challenge. And I think that is why it's in all likelihood, Shahan, the regulations that governs the disaster management, period will probably be extended, because that will give the government the framework to enforce the regulations and force down the closures. Other measures that are also coming is that the sale of alcohol is likely to be restricted again from Mondays to Thursdays, and with that curfew of 5 p.m., which is, of course, different from what we have now. But this is important to realize, Shahan. This is not going to affect the entire country. This is going to be hotspot specific. So this is, as all indicators show, going to be directed at areas where the numbers are out of control. And as I said, for this evening's purposes, a lot of attention on the Nelson Mandela Bay area, the Garden Route and sections of the Western Cape.
Yeah, so localized lockdowns. And Karima, when that happens, there will also be people who argue that the smaller businesses are going to be affected the most, and the large retailers, again, will be benefiting from this lockdown.
Yes, I mean, there's a built-in disadvantage for people who are not able to actualize regulations. And this is what the balance between securing livelihoods and lives is all about, Shahan. We have to take responsibility. So if you are running a business and you want to stay open, you have to be, able to implement the regulations. You have to be able to stay within the safety regulations. Your place place of business has to be properly ventilated. I mean, the acting mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay is really appealing, for example, for stricter regulations on open-air events, things like bashes, because that is really becoming the super spreader events. And I think given that we're going into the festive season, and as you know, South Africa generally starts, stopping businesses from about the 16th. The country starts shutting down. And there is a fear that large numbers of people will be gathering at places like beaches and other recreational spaces. And if we are to bring the numbers down, which is, of course, we've gone through the 4,000 threshold in 24 hours, Shahan, those regulations are going to have to be in place. And all your smaller businesses that services your open-air events, be it hawkers, food vendors and all of that, they are going to be affected. But the truth of the matter is we are here because people have not been adhering to the regulations. And I think the small businesses, the hawkers, they need to take responsibility for, making sure that they are actually playing within the rules so that people are able to earn a living without risking the health of a whole range of other people. And I think that is going to be the key issue. And we're going to have compliance, and we're going to have enforcement. But behavior change is a very difficult thing for South Africans. So I think government will also have to up their communication, Shahan. People have kind of just thrown the baby out with the bathwater, operating in places with no masks. And I think we're going to have to be a lot more tougher about the fact that wearing a mask is going to be mandatory. If you're in a place where there's recreation, that there will have to be, social distance, that facilities will have to have ablution areas where people are able to practice safe hygiene. And the restaurant industry and the small business associations will have to come to the party. Otherwise, I think they are going to face very stiff reaction from law enforcement agencies in South Africa, because without that, Shahan, we're going to see a lot higher numbers than we have, which is, of course, over the 4,000 threshold, as I've said, in 24 hours.
Yeah. All right, we can leave it right there. Political analyst and anchor of The Fix, Karima Brown.